So the next section is called developing love. Love is a major theme in Tasawwuf. Love is a major theme in life, but love is particularly a major theme in Tasawwuf as well. As a person advances spiritually, bonds of love develop. The Prophet ﷺ said, oh, by the way, let me say this. Where do these bonds of love develop? So the bonds of love develop in a few very specific places. Number one, between the shaykh and the student. It's very natural because there's so much benefit that both receive from one another. So there is a love that develops. Like I said earlier, teachers tend to view their students as their children spiritually, and children tend to view their teachers as their parents spiritually. And this is a broad principle. Of course, they're not parents. I'm not saying they take the role of parents. I'm just saying metaphysically, okay, spiritually. And this results in a lot of love between teacher and student. And that's a strong bond, again, in this sphere. And in addition, there's a lot of love that develops in between students. Just like how Sahaba preferred one over the other, others over themselves, this love begins to develop between students as well because they're all on the same path. And in general, it should spread beyond that. I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but this will then slowly permeate into interactions with other people as well. But generally speaking, this is a key feature or a common theme that arises as people develop spiritually, and that is that this love and these bonds of love develop. Just to show you the power of these, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily there are people among the servants of Allah who are neither prophets nor martyrs." Now of course, prophets have a high status, so do martyrs. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying there's other people among the servants of Allah who are neither prophets nor martyrs, but whose good fortune will be coveted on the Day of Judgment by both the prophets and the martyrs. So these are not prophets, not martyrs, but the prophets and the martyrs will covet their good fortune. Why? Because of the positions that these people will hold near the Almighty. So the companions, obviously, when they hear such an introduction, they want to know who these people are. So they said, "Tell us, O Messenger ﷺ, who are these people?" So the Prophet ﷺ replied, "They are a people who love one another for no other sake than for the sake of Allah." So they love each other only for the sake of Allah. They have no blood, no financial ties between them. By Allah, their faces and everything else about them will be light. When most people fear, they will have no fear. And when most people have sorrow, they will have no sorrow. So this is the people who love one another only for the sake of Allah. Now, there's many circumstances where that can engage. You can engage in that, right? You can engage in that simply by just engaging with the people in the masjid or with a scholar. But it's particular in the science of Tasawwuf that this emphasis is placed because so much love develops between the teacher and the student because of the fact that they're traveling on such an important journey together. And so much love develops between the people in the gatherings and other people that they interact with because they share this common goal. After this statement that the Prophet ﷺ made, the Prophet ﷺ then recited the following verse. "Ala inna awliya Allah." Undoubtedly, the friends of Allah, la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. The friends of Allah have nothing to fear, nor shall they grieve. So again, highlighting the friends of the power of love only for the sake of Allah between people. It creates a very, very strong effect downstream. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ listed the people shaded by Allah on the Day of Judgment. And he said, included in this list, "And two people who love one another for the sake of Allah, who came together because of Him, and who depart because of Him." So again, another reminder of the powerful love that arises in people and the great benefits downstream. In this case, being shaded by Allah, by the throne of Allah on the Day of Judgment. Now, when this love exists, what ends up happening, the goal of this love is not to create some sort of like insulated bubble of a bunch of people that love one another, but rather the goal of this is that this love should lead to service and sacrifice for others. The ultimate manifestation of this love is not in and of itself. It is for an expression beyond the relationship to all the people that a person engages with. It's very important to appreciate this. You know that you've achieved a state when this love crosses the threshold and begins to overflow into everyone that you engage with. People at work, your neighbors, the people around you, the people in the masjid, the people in the community, this love becomes very dominant in relationships with others. Just to give a few examples, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh states, a man from the Ansar had a guest for the night, but no food to offer him. A man from the Ansar had a guest for the night, but no food to offer him, except for a few morsels he had put aside for his children. Now look, this person has very limited means. This is a man from the Ansar, has very limited means. So what does he do? He saves a little bit of food for his children. It's not plates and plates of food. It's just a few bites. Now a guest came. So when the guest comes, what does the man say? The man said to his wife, put the children to sleep. Put the kids to bed. Yes, they're hungry. Put them to bed. And then turn out the light and serve the guest whatever we have. Meaning, if the guest were to see how little food there was, they would feel ashamed to eat because there's not enough for the two people, the host and the guest. So the host says, put out the light. We'll put the food in front of the guest. The guest will comfortably eat and will remain hungry. Host, wife, and kids. Can you just imagine what type of preference these people had for one another? What type of preference these people had for one another? This event was so significant. This event was so significant that the following verse was revealed. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. And they give priority over themselves even though they themselves had a need. SubhanAllah. Just think about it. I mean, this is the type of love that existed between the companions in the face of their pursuit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On another occasion, and this is so remarkable, so relevant, and we can think about it in this day and age, Umar radiallahu anh was on his deathbed. He was wounded, as we're all aware of the story, I'm not going to go into it. And he said to his son, go to the mother of the believers and ask and say to her that Umar ibn al-Khattab asked permission to be buried at the side of his two companions. Okay, now listen to the background. Let's understand what's going on. Where is the Prophet ﷺ buried at this time? Where is he buried? The house of whom? Aisha. The Prophet ﷺ is buried in the house of Aisha. Okay, there's a relationship there, husband-wife, correct? Now who dies next? Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. So where is Hazrat Abu Bakr radiallahu anh buried? In the house of Aisha, next to the Prophet ﷺ. And there's a relationship there, right? That's father and daughter. Correct? Abu Bakr and Aisha, that's father and daughter. Now Umar radiallahu anh is on his deathbed. He's wounded. So what does he seek permission? The best place for him to rest would be with the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, but it's the house of Aisha. There's no relation there. So now he needs permission to be buried there. Okay, who is Umar at this time? Is he a common person? No, he's the Amir al-Mu'mineen. He's the Amir of everyone. He just has to give the command that I'm going to be buried and he will be buried there. But he says to his son, go and ask the mother of the believers for permission. And when he gives a reference, he doesn't say, don't say Amir al-Mu'mineen said. Say Umar ibn al-Khattab said. He's asking for permission. Just imagine what is going on in the mind of Aisha radiallahu anha when she gets this message. So look what she says. Aisha replied, I had wanted that place for myself. It would be most appropriate for my husband and my father. I'll be buried there. But today I prefer that he should have it. Where are you going to find that kind of sacrifice? Now, these are people with lovers of deen. I mean, for lovers of deen, you're going to be buried with the Prophet ﷺ. And in that context, You say, I actually wanted it for myself. Let's be honest. I had wanted that place for myself. But today, I prefer that he should have it. Subhanallah. Subhanallah, where do you find such love? Only in the path of Allah. Only in the deen of Allah. That's what grows this type of sacrifice. You won't find this in common history. Subhanallah. So this is the nature of love, the expression of love, the overflowing of love that the scholars of Tasawwuf and the Mashayikh tend to emphasize, and it's a dominant theme in the science of Tasawwuf. So many poems written about love, so many expositions of love, the love of Allah, the love of the Messenger, the love of one another, etc., etc. It just goes on and on.